Good morning, everybody. It's fun to be here. And I use the word fun very much because I want to use the word fun. I do what I like to do in retirement, and I like to hang around with people who take life very seriously and take macroeconomics and global finance very seriously, but don't take themselves terribly seriously at all. And that is what I've found in my many years of working with the folks at the last home of Professor Minsky, and it is a great partnership that I have with them. In fact, we don't just like each other professionally, we like each other personally, and we're always playing with each other to try to figure out how to summarize things on bumper stickers. Minsky moment can be put on a bumper sticker. Shadow banking can be put on a bumper sticker. So that's one of my specialties. So therefore I was asking Dimitri, what's the bumper sticker for the next 2 days? He couldn't give me one, so I made one up for you. So the next couple days are going to be about first principles and practicalities. Hopefully over the next couple days we blend good old-fashioned first principles of economics, but also translate them into practical discussion of what's going on in the world. What I see in my sphere way too often is people with practical solutions without any principled foundation. Some could say that's the political profession, perhaps, but practical solutions that are guaranteed to fail because they're not grounded in first principles. And at the other end of the spectrum, I see great articulation of first principles with no appreciation whatsoever about the practicalities of implementation. So what I think the post-Keynesian movement is all about is trying to blend the two. Because the post-Keynesian movement is grounded in some hugely important first principles. So the first principles are there. The issue now is translating it into practical solutions and getting somebody to hear. And getting somebody to hear. With that preference, let me tell you about what I'm going to talk about today, which are actually 3 first principles. So I'm going to focus on first principles, and then we can weave it into current events, which will beget, hopefully, some degree of practical solutions and discussions. Be real simple. First principle number 1. There are only going to be 3 that I'm going to walk through today. First principle number 1. Microeconomics and macroeconomics are distinctively different fields. In college and graduate school, particularly in college, I'm not sure if it's still the case now, you guys can fill me in, you tend to have your freshmen and sophomores take microeconomics one semester and then macroeconomics the following semester. Is that still the sequence? Micro first and then macro the second semester? And the reason being, as it was explained to me for that pedagogy, is that you have to understand microeconomics before you can understand macroeconomics. And there's a strong element of truth to that. You have to understand the core concepts of supply and demand, marginal versus average, utility maximization. That's all the sort of stuff you teach in micro, right? You still teach that, Dimitri? You still teach those core concepts in micro? I hope so anyway. So the notion you need to have those building blocks. And then once you have those building blocks, you can aggregate them up into this field called macroeconomics. So the ordering of the curriculum is you learn first principles for micro, and then you simply add them up and you get to macro. So from an ordinal perspective, it makes sense to have micro before macro. The key aspect of both Keynesian economics, post-Keynesian economics, and actually macroeconomics as a field is that it is not simply a summing up exercise of micro. I'm going to repeat that because this is the bumper sticker I want you to take away from what I have to say today in many respects, is macroeconomics is not simply the summing up of microeconomics. Macroeconomics is a distinctively different discipline than micro, even though it's important to understand micro, just like it's important to understand algebra. We usually have algebra before macroeconomics as well, but we don't pretend that algebra and macroeconomics are the same field, and we shouldn't pretend that microeconomics and macroeconomics are the same field either, because macro is not simply a summing up. Or, put differently, the core of understanding macro is the simple proposition that that which holds for the individual does not necessarily hold for the village. That which can be rational for the individual can be irrational for the village. Understanding that simple proposition is the core of macro. That which holds for the individual doesn't necessarily hold for the community of individuals. Technically speaking, the core of macroeconomics is the paradox of aggregation. The paradox of aggregation. Aggregation implies summing up. Paradox captures the essence of macro. Summing up that which happens at the individual level can give you paradoxical outcomes. So therefore you need to understand the village as an entity in and of itself. There are insights, analytical insights from looking at the village itself, not as a summing up problem. Now, let me give you a really practical example. And we'll get away from being a pointy-headed academic here for a second. A really practical example. Have you ever been to a concert or a sporting event that was exceedingly crowded and was full of excitement? You can nod your head. If you haven't been to one of those events, maybe you should, because it should be on your bucket list. A good concert or a good sporting match. And you, as an individual, can rationally, maximizing your own utility, make the independent decision to stand up to get a better view. You can confess you've had that urge, right? If I stand up, I can see over that tall guy with the hat in front of me. So that's rational, right? I'm going to stand up so as I can see over that tall guy with the hat in front of me. Not only will I be able to see the concert, the odds of him throwing a beer over his shoulder at me go down as well. So therefore, that is a rational decision. If everybody in your section of the theater or the stadium gets that rational impulse at the same time, what is the paradoxical result? Very simple, right? Everybody is standing up. Nobody has got a better view, and everybody has got sore feet. Therefore, we need to have an analytical framework for a better outcome for the community, a better outcome for the village, than everybody individually, rationally standing up to get a better view. Because everybody acting individually, rationally, gives you a suboptimal outcome for the community, known as everybody has sore feet. Now, as a practical matter, how do we deal with that problem at the sporting event or the concert? We as a community at such an event will likely have somebody amongst us, it may even be you, somebody amongst us all of a sudden scream out, "Everybody sit down!" Right? That's your macroeconomist in the community. That is your macroeconomist in the community who has looked out and said, this is not rational for the community. We have a collective action problem. We have a collective action problem, so we need to have a macro referee. I will appoint myself to be a macro referee and order everybody to sit down in a very loud voice. Another simple example, which will reflect that I do appreciate that I'm 56 years old and life has changed. Cell phones is similar to standing up, right? You want to sneak a call on your cell phone. There is a referee at the beginning of a play when you're at the theater, right? What does the referee say? Turn off your cell phones. Most people do, Hal, right? However, you still know that if you can sneak by yourself a picture on your cell phone while everybody else follows the rules, then you will have gotten the only picture of Eric Clapton playing